Hello, everyone. Welcome back to English After Hours. I'm Tim.
And I'm Steph. Tim, the strangest thing happened to me at the grocery store yesterday. I was in the checkout line when the person ahead of me started having an animated phone conversation about a news story. She kept saying things like, "Did you see the breaking news alert?" And the headline was completely misleading.
That sounds like a very modern moment, getting news updates and discussing them immediately, even while shopping.
Exactly. But what caught my attention was how she described the same story differently than what I had read online that morning. She was getting her information from social media, while I had read a detailed newspaper article about the same event.
That's such a perfect example of how different communication channels can present the same information in completely different ways. Did you end up discussing it with her?
We did chat briefly. She showed me the social media post on her phone. It was just a few sentences with a dramatic headline. When I mentioned the newspaper article I'd read, which had much more background and context, she seemed genuinely surprised that there was more to the story.
It's fascinating how the medium really affects the message, isn't it? A newspaper article, a social media post, a TV news segment, and a radio report about the same event can feel like completely different stories.
Absolutely. And it got me thinking about how much media literacy and communication vocabulary we need just to navigate daily information. We're constantly consuming and discussing news through different platforms and formats.
That's so true. Whether someone's reading traditional newspapers, watching cable news, listening to podcasts, or scrolling through social media feeds, they need different vocabulary and skills to understand and discuss what they're consuming.
And for English learners, especially preparing for IELTS, media and communication topics come up constantly. Questions about news sources, information sharing, and communication preferences are incredibly common in speaking and writing tasks.
Plus, understanding media vocabulary helps people participate more effectively in conversations about current events, evaluate information critically, and express their opinions about how media and technology are changing in our digital world.
I think our grocery store encounter perfectly illustrates why media and communication vocabulary is so essential for modern English use.
Absolutely. Today, we're exploring language that helps us navigate the complex world of information and communication that surrounds us every day.
Before we dive into media vocabulary, please remember to subscribe to English After Hours, hit that notification bell, and give us a thumbs up.
And remember, we upload new English lessons every single day. Make sure you don't miss tomorrow's episode.
Today, we're covering essential vocabulary for discussing different types of media and news sources, describing communication methods and information sharing, discussing the reliability of different information sources, and expressing opinions about how media and technology affect communication and society.
That's right. Whether you're discussing news and current events, describing your communication preferences, talking about information sources, or preparing for IELTS speaking questions about media and technology, this vocabulary is essential for informed participation in modern conversations.
You'll use this vocabulary when discussing news stories, describing how you get information, talking about social media and communication apps, evaluating news sources, and expressing opinions about media influence and information quality.
We'll learn vocabulary for different media types and platforms, news and information sources, communication technologies, and how to discuss media literacy and information evaluation.
Since Tim prefers traditional news sources and face-to-face communication, while I use a variety of digital platforms and social media for information and communication, we can explore different approaches to media consumption and information sharing.
Let's start by talking about how we consume news and information in our daily lives.
Tim, that grocery store conversation really made me reflect on my own media habits. How do you typically stay informed about current events and news?
I still prefer traditional news sources, honestly. I read a physical newspaper most mornings with my coffee, and I watch the evening news on television a few times a week. I find these sources provide more comprehensive coverage and context than what I see on social media or in clickbait headlines.
Do you use any digital news sources, or do you stick mainly with traditional media?
I do check news websites occasionally, especially when I want to read more about a story I heard about, but I prefer the slower, more thoughtful pace of traditional journalism to the constant stream of updates and alerts that come with digital news. I also listen to NPR during my commute sometimes. Radio news gives me current information while allowing me to focus on other activities.
What do you think are the advantages of your approach to news consumption?
Traditional news sources usually provide more thorough fact checking, better context, and less sensationalized reporting than what you often find on social media or in clickbait headlines. Do you think there are any disadvantages to relying mainly on traditional media?
Sometimes traditional media can be slower to report breaking news, and you might miss important updates that are happening in real time. Also, traditional sources might not capture the full range of perspectives that you can find through social media and alternative news sources.
That's a fair point. How would you describe your approach to getting news and information?
I use a much more diverse mix of sources. I follow news organizations on social media, subscribe to email newsletters, listen to news podcasts, and check news apps on my phone throughout the day. What advantages do you see in using multiple digital sources?
I can get information quickly as events unfold, access different perspectives on the same story, and customize my newsfeed to include topics that are most relevant to my interests and work. I also appreciate being able to fact check information immediately and read original sources rather than just summaries or interpretations.
How do you handle the challenge of information overload with so many sources?
I've learned to be selective about which sources I trust and to limit my news consumption to specific times of day rather than constantly checking for updates. I also try to distinguish between breaking news that requires immediate attention and background information that I can read when I have more time. Now let's learn essential vocabulary for different media types and news sources.
Traditional media: newspaper, television news, radio news, magazine, print media, broadcast journalism, news anchor, reporter, correspondent.
Digital media, news website, online newspaper, news app, podcast, blog, social media news, email newsletter, news aggregator, live streaming.
Media formats: headline, article, editorial, opinion piece, news report, feature story, breaking news, news alert, press release.
Let's practice describing media preferences and news consumption habits. This vocabulary is essential for IELTS speaking tasks about communication and information.
Can you explain why you prefer certain types of news sources over others?
I value the editorial oversight and fact checking that comes with established newspapers and television news programs. Professional journalists typically verify information through multiple sources before publishing, which gives me more confidence in the accuracy of what I'm reading.
What role does timing play in your news consumption choices?
I prefer reading comprehensive analysis rather than immediate reactions to events. Daily newspapers allow me to get thoughtful coverage of yesterday's events rather than minute by minute updates that might be incomplete or inaccurate. However, I understand that some situations require real time information, like weather emergencies or local safety issues.
How do you evaluate the credibility of different news sources? I start by checking whether the source identifies the author and provides contact information. Credible sources usually have clear editorial policies and transparent funding sources. I also look for whether they cite their sources and provide links to original documents or research.
What warning signs suggest that information might be unreliable?
Sensational headlines that don't match the content, emotional language designed to provoke strong reactions, missing publication dates, and claims that can't be verified through other sources are all red flags.
Anonymous sources can be legitimate in some cases, but I'm more skeptical when entire articles are based on unnamed sources without explanation of why anonymity is necessary.
How important do you think media literacy education is for students?
I think it's absolutely essential in our current information environment. Students need to learn how to verify information, recognize bias, and distinguish between fact and opinion just as much as they need traditional academic skills.
What specific media literacy skills do you think are most important?
Understanding how to verify information through multiple sources, recognizing common techniques used in misleading content, and developing healthy skepticism without becoming cynical about all information.
Critical thinking skills that help people ask good questions about what they're reading and hearing are also crucial for navigating modern media.
Now let's learn how to express opinions about media influence and communication changes.
Media influence shapes public opinion, influences attitudes, affects behavior, creates awareness, spreads information, promotes ideas, reflects social values.
Communication changes. Instant communication, global connectivity, information overload, shortened attention spans, reduced privacy, increased access, digital divide.
Balanced perspectives, both benefits and drawbacks, depends on how it's used, requires responsible use, creates new opportunities, presents new challenges.
Let's practice expressing opinions about media influence and communication trends. This type of discussion is common in IELTS writing and speaking tasks about technology and society.
Do you think social media has had a mostly positive or negative impact on how people communicate and share information?
I think social media has created valuable opportunities for people to connect across geographic and social boundaries, but it's also contributed to the spread of misinformation and created new forms of social pressure and comparison.
What aspects of social media communication do you find most concerning?
The speed at which false information can spread, the tendency toward oversimplification of complex issues, and the way algorithms can create echo chambers where people only see information that confirms their existing beliefs. However, social media has also given voice to people and communities that were previously excluded from mainstream media coverage.
How do you think traditional media should adapt to compete with digital and social media? Traditional media organizations need to maintain their standards for accuracy and thorough reporting while finding ways to engage audiences who are accustomed to immediate interactive content. They can't abandon quality journalism, but they need to present it in formats that work for digital platforms.
Do you think the speed of modern communication has improved or harmed the quality of information sharing?
Speed can be valuable for urgent information, like emergency alerts or breaking news, but it often comes at the cost of accuracy and context. The pressure to publish quickly can lead to errors and incomplete reporting that have to be corrected later.
The most important thing is helping people develop the skills to distinguish between information that requires immediate attention and topics that benefit from slower, more thoughtful analysis.
Let's review everything we learned today. We covered different types of media and news sources, communication methods and technology, information reliability and media literacy, and expressing opinions about media influence and communication changes.
We learned essential vocabulary for discussing news consumption habits, describing communication preferences, evaluating information credibility, and analyzing the impact of media and technology on society.
Remember, media and communication vocabulary is incredibly important for IELTS speaking and writing tasks about technology, information, current events, and social change. Plus, it's essential for navigating our information-rich world.
This vocabulary connects with our previous lessons too. Media affects how we learn about current events, influences cultural trends, shapes business decisions, and impacts personal relationships and social interactions.
Practice tip. This week, try analyzing your own media consumption habits and information sources using today's vocabulary. Think about how you evaluate the credibility of different information sources.
For IELTS preparation, practice answering media and communication questions like, how do you get your news? Or what are the advantages and disadvantages of social media?
You can also practice expressing balanced opinions about media influence and communication technology using the discussion vocabulary we learned today.
Before we finish today's episode, we have your homework assignment.
Tell us about your media and communication preferences in the comments. Use the vocabulary we learned today.
For example, you could write, I prefer getting news from reliable sources like established newspapers and television news. I use social media for quick updates, but always verify important information through multiple sources.
Or, I rely on news apps and podcasts for daily information because they're convenient for my busy schedule. I try to practice media literacy by checking the credibility of sources and avoiding clickbait headlines.
Challenge. This week, try evaluating the credibility of different news sources and describe your analysis using today's media literacy vocabulary.
That's all for today's episode. Thank you so much for learning with us. Please subscribe to English After Hours, like this video, and share it with your friends who are learning English.
Remember, we upload new lessons every day, so make sure you're subscribed with notifications on so you don't miss tomorrow's episode.
Keep practicing, stay media literate, and we'll see you tomorrow for another essential English lesson.
Goodbye from English After Hours.
Bye, everyone!